This is Britain's Newsroom with me and Ben. Right, joining us, political commentator Emma Trimble and author and commentator Nikki Hodgson. Shall we start with this very sad news? Simon Cowell having a moment of reflection amid Liam Payne's death as he thought of One Direction as his sons. Nikki?
I mean, I've got so much sympathy for Liam Payne and his family, but Simon Cowell perhaps not so much. I'm a bit cynical about him as an operator. Because I mean, look, he's made so much money out of so many young people for so many years. I know it's his business, I know it's his industry.
What's wrong with that?
But, well, maybe there isn't, but there are so many stories about him which I won't be able to repeat on air, about his terrible treatment of other human beings. I don't think he's a particularly nice man. I think he's very grasping.
Have you ever met him?
Not personally, but I know people that have worked with him, and I've heard a lot on the grapevine through them, people that have actually worked for Psycho, the company. That's why I say it. But, I mean, I don't really care what Simon Cowell thinks, to be honest, but I do care about Liam Payne's family, and I feel very, very sad that there's been lots of stories for many years about his addiction struggles. He was open about his drinking problems. And obviously, nothing has been said so far, but there's a suggestion that that might be part of something that contributed to him dying, and that makes me feel terribly sad because, you know, I've had people with addiction issues. My dad was an addict, he was an alcoholic, and the trauma and the pain that they inflict on others, but also themselves, because they desperately want to stop and they can't. Real addicts.
I just feel so sad, Emma, for his young child, Bear, who's 7 years old, the child he had with Cheryl Cole. And, you know, I got some stick on your say a second ago saying, Ben, why are you saying, what are you doing? I said at the top of the last hour, you know, very sad about Liam Payne's death. I was absolutely shocked to hear it when I woke up that morning. But I said, what are you doing getting drugged up in a hotel room? You know, when you've got a 7-year-old child halfway across the world. Someone has accused me of being not very sympathetic because I said that.
Well, you have a young son, don't you? So, I mean, I think that...
very sympathetic.
I mean, I can't imagine what his family must be going through, but also because I think with something like addiction, whether it's alcoholism or drugs, the people who are close to them, who may have tried and failed to help them, won't be able to help, even if it's wrongly, but feel that they have some kind of responsibility because they weren't able to stop it. And I think those conflicted feelings, also if you're a young child and something like this has happened to your father, especially as a young boy, you know, that's something that will resonate throughout the whole of his life. And this, I mean, I didn't know anything about him, actually, before this story broke. And I watched some videos. A lot of people have been, journalists have been posting interviews that they'd done with him. And he seems like a really, really lovely guy who must have been really struggling with
very
these
smart
things.
And quick.
And he seems like a sweet person. And I don't know exactly what the cause of his, you know, falling from this window was. But I think it just goes to show how complicated people are. You know, that you can, you know, come across as this lovely, jovial and sweet person, but obviously, if with these sorts of issues, something else is going on.
Yeah, he said last year in an interview that he hides it very well. He said he was struggling. He said, I don't know where my rock bottom is. It could still be to come, and you'd never guess, but, you know, I am in turmoil.
So I just sometimes do find it difficult when I hear somebody who's got literally everything going through that, because, you know, one of my very close friends, their best friend is, you know, has some very serious issues with cancers and things like that, and half of me feels so sad for Liam, but then the other half of me thinks, well, why? You had everything. And
but it is an illness now, and a passing point. That's the problem. And I guess, well, I mean, that's just that's the problem with it.
But also, I mean, man doesn't live by bread alone, so you can have everything in the world and still, you know, have those things going on the inside. And I think also, I mean, we're speaking about his child. I think, you know, children sense when something's wrong, and I think that there's, even with young children, there's a feeling of sort of wanting to save your parents, wanting to stop them from, you know, leaving you if you feel that they you know, they might go somewhere in some way, whether it's, you know, because of alcohol or whatever reason. And I think, I mean, I just really can't imagine the pain that young boy must be going through and how hard it must have been for his for his mother to tell him.
Yeah, it's unbearable thinking about it.
All right, well, let's not think about it too much then. Let's move on to this one. The NHS has a record number of written complaints. All right, My number for this, I think, about $250,000. That's
what complaints. 75,000.
All right. Well, if you'd read your script there, it actually said it. 241,000.
Oh, so I was closer.
No, I'm closer.
What was your guess?
$250,000.
Oh, you read the script.
Well, you should have done as well. You could have. You
read it. You
had the option. Right, Emma.
So apparently, GPs have been also using, aside from how many complaints, unsurprising, the GPs have been using ChatGPT to write their responses to patients' complaints. And the Medical Defence Union has expressed concerns that not only might this lead to inaccuracies or to the GPs giving a kind of cookie-cutter response that doesn't really respond to the specifics of the patient's complaint, but also that they're handing over sensitive information to ChatGPT, to an AI, in order to write these responses. We all know the NHS is broken, but you do have to wonder, you know, the judgment of the GPs who have chosen to put sensitive information into an AI that is, you know, it's a company, it's a third party. But I mean, I'm not surprised at all about the rising number of complaints because many people can't get to see a GP. When you do get to see a GP, you have such a short amount of time with them that they can't look at you holistically. So you have to have separate appointments for separate ailments. It takes them, therefore, takes them much longer to actually figure out what's going on with people. And very many people, I know from personal experience, they just drop out of the system because it's too difficult to actually get somewhere. And so I would not be surprised if there are people who have died as a result of the system being so difficult to operate their way through. If they're ill, they've got no one to fight on their behalf.
Oh, that's the way. I mean, that's.
But it just becomes too difficult, and they just resign themselves to their ailments.
That's happening all the time, Nikki.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked for the NHS several times, a long time ago, but I used to work in cancer waiting lists, and I used to work in surgery, you know, in admin as a student. But the stuff that I used to read about, I worked on clinical negligence reports. So things like medical instruments being left in bodies and, you know, just appall it. You know, a young mum being left paralysed after she had the baby because, you know, they messed up the surgery, things like that. They were just appalling things to read about. And that was a long time ago before there were this number of complaints. The thing that really disturbs me is the ChatGPT issue. How are people of GP's intelligence not able to realise that that is a breach of confidentiality?
Because they're overworked, Nikki.
It's just so unacceptable, though, isn't it? It's just so basic. And it's the first thing you learn when you work for the NHS. The first thing they press into you as an admin is confidentiality.
I don't think they thought that far ahead because a lot of people just think, oh, it's ChatGPT, it's going somewhere.
It's somewhere and somehow anonymous.
Yeah,
absolute rubbish.
It isn't. All right, what about this then, Nikki? Alexa was spreading fake news. Amazon admits errors. What, the Alexa?
Well, again, this is the thing. Have you noticed now, if you search something in Google, you get a little AI potted history of something. So many people are turning to use that now, and so much of it is actually rubbish and has errors in it. Emma, and Alexa is spreading it.
Got to go to the news. 10 seconds.
I've asked ChatGPT, I know it's not Alexa, questions about things that I know about, and it very often gets things quite dramatically wrong. One of the funny things with Alexa that is mentioned here is apparently Mike Tyson spoke on television explaining his support for Palestine and encouraging a boycott of Israel, and this fact checker found that wasn't true. It's a very specific and strange thing for it to be lying about.
All right, listen, Emma Trimble and also Nikki Hodgson, thank you very much.